thank you for coming along to the panel today. We appreciate you being here. This is a panel all about community content, and I'm sure you've been out and seen it for sale there at the booth. We have some examples of work here, and I'm sure we'll be using them to talk about what we're saying. Quick introduction, my name is Michael O'Brien. I work for Chaosium, and I was one of the people that started off the idea of us doing a community content program. It's not an original idea. You probably saw the DMs Guild, which is the which was the first one. It is actually a brilliant idea because it enables anyone to create something and publish it, and I think that is an awesome thing. What the amazing thing is, our programs, the Miskatonic Repository and the Johnstown Compendium, are just absolutely humming.
Yeah.
And the quality of the stuff being produced is just mind-blowing. And the people on the panel today are going to tell you a bit about how that's done, how you can get involved in it, and how you can be part of the creative community, both as a creator and as a consumer. And I'm going to throw over to Bridgett, who is one of our community ambassadors.
Hi, hello. Thank you for coming, guys. Before we do the panel introductions, where I have everyone go down the line, we'll start with Mark and work our way down on who we are and what we do. You're here for the community content panel, which probably means you're interested in publishing at some point. So really the value is going to be coming from here, but it needs to be directed to you guys there. So don't leave me hanging. Go ahead and do some audience participation. Who here is already published on the community content platform? Okay, we've got 2. That's amazing. All right. Who is looking to publish on the community platform? Okay.
Excellent.
So the rest of y'all here just for a good time, or like, okay, got it. Awesome. Perfect. All right. Call of Cthulhu heads. Let's see who people. Okay. Yeah. I love it. All right. Awesome. RuneQuest. Who people do like.
There's the 2 of us, 3 of us.
Beautiful. 7th Sea. That is a thing. We do have the Explorer Society. Great. And who I just dragged up here because he's going to be heading up one of our newest programs is going to be Pendragon. People who may be interested in publishing for Pendragon. Perfect. Okay. So, shout out to me, guys. Why aren't you published now? What's holding you back? What's your biggest fear? Just shout it out to me. What's holding you back right now? Why aren't you published? Time is a thing. Okay. More? Mas? Come on, give me something else.
Having to work full time.
Why is life a thing? The disrespect of it.
My fucking family.
So time, life, and family are holding us back. Okay, got it. What else is holding you back from publishing right now? A publisher. Oh, it's a great thing that you have platforms like this, and we'll tell you all about that in a second. Okay. Anything else you're sitting back like, man, I would love to do it, but...
Self-confidence in terms of projecting the ideas?
Yes!
And the ideas on paper?
Ben, this is the type of depth I was looking for. Yes, I mean, family was also hysterical, but yes. Yeah, the confidence factor is a really big one because a lot of time we as creators will gatekeep ourselves out of opportunities. Thank you for the affirmation there. Because we've never done it before, or we don't know how to do it, or we don't know if it's good enough, or we don't know what we can use and what we can't use. And that's a hurdle that everyone up here has overcome or is getting ready to overcome. So that is completely a legitimate one that we will address. So thank you guys for that. I sincerely appreciate it. I'm going to start all the way down here with Mark. Mark, please tell us who you are and why you're on this panel, and then I need to come up with a fun question. This is something I do on another platform I'm on. It's not going to be your favorite color. I want to hear your favorite animal. There we go. Who you are, why you're on this panel, and then what your favorite animal is.
All right. I'm Mark Morrison. I've written professionally for Chaosium for a long time, and I have published on the Miskatonic Repository, my very first scenario ever, and really honoured and delighted that Pendragon has come back as a game and that there'll be a community content program because it's a delight to write for, it's a delight to play, and I can't wait to see that happen.
Yes.
And I like wombats.
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 Strong.
They're
Way to come strong.
They dig, they kind of just keep going. They never stop. They don't worry about time and family. They just keep digging.
Oh, the disrespect. That's so funny. I love it. All right, baby, hit us. Tell us who you are, why you're on this panel, and I need your favorite animal as well.
All right, so I'm David Waldron. I'm a historian and author and so on in academic and history field at Fed Uni. I've been publishing past 6 months, doing stories set in historical Ballarat and the Gold Rush, but I'm doing some other projects with Michael set more broadly around Melbourne and that. And just a favourite animal?
Favorite animal, babe?
Australian long-necked turtles.
Oh, I'll have to Google that one. Australian
Long-necked turtles.
long-necked
They are
turtles.
high energy, they're really friendly, they're really active. You have one in a tank and it goes "Brr," trying to get to the food. I love them, they're just cute.
Were you describing turtles or me?
Turtles.
Okay, I was just wondering. I'm also high energy and will reach my neck out for food. Hi. My name is Bridgett. I am a community coordinator for Chaosium, so half of my job is running our organized play program, the Cult of Chaos, and the other half of it is literally supporting creators who are sitting in panels like this going, I kind of want to, and then me going, like, yeah, but you could have done it already. Let me show you how. My favorite animal. This is not going to come to a surprise to anybody that follows me, but it's dogs. Let's just keep it super simple. Give me a canine and I'm a happy place. My boss, his wife, calls me a person with dog dar, because if there's a dog anywhere in the vicinity, I will immediately be in on it. It was like, I want to pet that dog.
I'm Kat Clay. Yeah, I love this. I have been writing community content. I started late 2020 and published The Hammersmith Haunting, and yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by how well it did. And then I published my second scenario, which is a longer, mini campaign for Regency Cthulhu, The Well of All Fear, last May. And that's just about to go to print.
Whoop, whoop.
And then I just have plans for total world domination after that. So, I love lots of animals. Like, I'm a big animal lover. I really like birds of prey, like hawks and falcons. They're just cool, they're edgy, they're great.
I like that. I like
Cacao!
that. I'll give you $1 if you do it again.
Cacao!
I'll PayPal you. That's amazing. Go ahead, it's Richard.
Okay, I'm Richard Watts. Like Mark, I wrote a lot for Chaosium from about 1990 onwards when my first scenario was published. I've written for Cthulhu in the Gaslight, Contemporary and 20s. I also put Cthulhu aside for a while to focus more on Stormbringer and Elric, again with Mark. And I have to acknowledge the late, great Keith Herber for being the person who contacted Mark and I and said, you should write for Stormbringer, which then morphed into kind of helping write the Elric rules and some books after that. Then I got into arts journalism in a big way, and role-playing kind of like stopped happening. Time, no fucking family, but a couple of years ago, when the new edition of Terra Australis was being created, I put my hand up and was like, oh, I could write the Melbourne chapter. And I could write about law and order in Australia, and drug use and the queer underworld. I'll do all of those bits. I was just going to write a little bit, and that kind of opened the floodgates, and I started having ideas again. So I've just written some stuff for Golden Goblin Press for the Hibernia chapter, which is Ireland in the Roman era. I've just written a scenario now set in Hibernia for a new book coming out, and I'm kind of the blow-in on this panel because I'm literally halfway through writing my first ever content for the Miskatonic repository. Do you want me to talk about that now or later?
Yeah, you're already on a roll, baby.
Okay,
Keep
cool.
going.
I'll just quickly summarise that. I'm a queer man who is fascinated by history. I discovered a thing called the pansy craze existed. And I had never heard of it. And I used to edit a gay and lesbian newspaper and publish a weekly history column. And I was like, if I don't know about the pansy craze, which was a point in the late 20s, early 30s when openly gay and lesbian performers were the highest paid stars on Broadway, and literally going to pansy bars and running pansy bars was the hot, cool new thing to do. I was like, okay, if I don't know about that, other people don't. So I was just going to write like a little 3,000-word essay. I've now written 28,000 words.
Yeah, you have.
And I haven't...
It's going to eventually this, isn't it?
And it's not finished yet. Plus, I want there to be a scenario. So that is underway, and that will come out. Appropriate phrase. That will be published on the repository at some stage.
That's going to be dope. And your favorite animal?
Favorite animal?
Yes.
Drop it.
The coelacanth.
Yeah,
Very
That's
good.
good call.
Very good.
The what?
The coelacanth.
Coelacanth.
It's a a prehistoric fish
yeah.
that was believed to be extinct for millions of years, and then fishermen caught one off the coast of
Cheerfully
Madagascar.
swimming around
Like
all the
recently?
time.
Oh,
Yeah, like
40,
80s, I
50
think,
years
wasn't
ago. But
Wow. Did y'all know what that was? It's just me? That's fine. And then, Mob, you already did your introduction, but like, what's your favorite animal?
A duck. a particular duck, but I will actually say I have actually also published on the Miskatonic Repository and Johnstown Compendium myself, because anyone can.
Yeah.
And that's my book there. So, or one of my books there.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Exciting.
So, I just found out I was moderating this like 10 minutes ago, so y'all just stuck with me having a great time with myself. I want to touch on the cell phone going off in front of me. I want to touch on something that I think is really interesting, common thread that I heard across the board. Why did you publish on the community content program? Because we have everyone that I'm hearing has been writing for Chaosium professionally. We have like a professional writer here. We heard like I have an interest in queer history, so that's a direction that I went. I have a history degree, so it's not a really big surprise that the first two things I published were both ripped off of history. So I think it'd be a really great place to start to kind of humanize the experience and also to inspire the audience. Why? Why did you publish on a community content program? Anybody can hop out.
Everyone's
we
looking-
nominate-
everyone nominates me. So yeah, like I basically have loved games my whole life, but I came to it very slowly and in a very different way. I think if you heard me talk at PAX last year, I apologize if you're hearing this for the second time. But basically, like I didn't really start playing tabletop games till about 2018. So I was kind of like, what is this? And some guy called Mark just like taught me about writing these things, and I'm like, these are cool, I like this. And then another friend was like, you would like this game called Call of Cthulhu. I'm like, great, I will play these things. And I think a lot of it was just really being open to new experiences. And for me, when the pandemic was happening, I was like, I need some other venues for my writing. I've always wanted to learn how to write a game. I've got time now. I took the Storytelling Collective course, which I can't recommend enough. Like I really do think it changed my life quite a bit.
That's an example of work from the
course. Yeah. No, it's seriously like it just makes you write. It's one shot in 1 month. It's meant to be 3,000 words. Mine was 10,000, but I was kind of like the one thing I did know. I knew I could pull out the design and I knew I could pull out the words quickly, like because I've been writing for a long time. And so, yeah, I came to that and it was just kind of like fulfilling a lifelong dream. But also, too, like that course helped me get over the fear of putting it out there because there was a deadline for the bundle. Yeah. And I just knew from working in marketing, I'm like, you got to be in the bundle. You have to you're going to sell way more copies. You're going to go up the selling charts if you hop in that bundle. And so it was like, right, I'm putting it out there. I don't care. Like, even if bits of it suck, like I'm just going to publish, you know. And it has gone exceedingly well. And look, I've revised it since then. Like, you know, there was mistakes when I published it. One paragraph was written in first person or something. Like I'd swapped over into a different, I reread it. I was like, what? I should have proofread this more. But, you know, I've updated the map since then. And that's the great flexibility of publishing online is if you make a mistake in the PDF or you want to update something or make a cooler map, you can actually go and do that. And I think just for me personally, like because I've been writing like solo for a long time, trying to get novels published, short stories, all that kind of stuff, the game writing is a really pleasant kind of companion piece to becoming a more holistic writer because
good articulation.
Novel writing is really lonely, really long, and it kind of sucks if you don't get published. So the game writing gives you a lot more, I think, satisfaction from hearing people have played your games. Like my game's been played in French, AP, in Spanish. People write to me and say, I had a great time with my friends. And I'm just like, as a writer, that's all you want to hear. Like, it's so good. So please, anyone else?
Look, I came to this from a really different angle. I started gaming back in the 80s, in the middle of the satanic panic and all that kind of thing, and which was, you know, interesting in my childhood. So I've been gaming for a long time, but my particular interest was looking at history education, ways in which I could get students to, you know, pay attention, and then actually when they start getting emotionally engaged, they start doing the reading, and once they start doing the reading, the rest will look after itself. So I've been using role-playing activities and things in classes for a very long time. In terms of publishing for here, a few years back, I managed to convince Ballarat City Council to give me some funds to put together a live play role-playing game set in Ballarat's history, particularly in the Gold Rush. So we ran those and we, slowly gained momentum. And a couple of years back, we switched to working with Call of Cthulhu. And Michael and Solomon was super supportive. And I was approached afterwards, do we want to publish the story we constructed? And so I had to go and put it together. And then I think the challenge there was to work out if I'm not running it and having our DM Shannon running it, if someone's buying this commercially, what are places people could take it? What are things players could do that you haven't anticipated? And so we, the first one, Shannon and I, really worked hard with William Bailey's Haunted Mansion, trying to work out where people might go and what they might do. Fill in extra resources and, publish that, and that's gone quite well. And I won a Victorian Community History Award for innovation in storytelling for that one.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then that led to doing this one, which is actually one I did for my podcast group, Tales from Rat City. So The Last Dance of Lola Montez, again, Ballarat history from the Gold Rush leading into the present. And that was one we just did together because I've been writing games to play for my friends and family for, nearly 40 years.
Yeah.
So it was, people found this quite a emotionally profound one when they played it. So I went, okay, I'll run this through and see how it goes. And away it's been.
Yeah, and it's here in print right now, which is just so sexy to see. I love Chaosium for that. Anybody else want to jump in on why you're on the platform?
I'll jump in a little bit. This kind of book I'm writing about, basically, I kind of, and it is going to be a book, I think, because I can't stop. But I thought to myself, it's a pretty niche subject in some ways, because I'd actually emailed Mike Mason, and said, to my knowledge, Mike, there's nothing that's been published kind of that explores queer life in New England specifically, but East Coast America generally in the 1920s and 1930s. Is that correct? And obviously I know that the Berlin source book has some queer material in it. There have been other examples. There's some Miskatonic repository publications that feature queer characters. But there's nothing specifically exploring that area. So after the success of Harlem, for example, the Harlem source book, I kind of thought, that's a way to make lived history gainable and interesting to a broader audience and bring it to their attention. And so I just started writing this book, which I realised can't just be about the 1920s and early 30s. You have to provide some background into how the queer community evolved in the first place so I started...
Getting thicker and thicker.
I know. So, there is now a chapter all about queer life in colonial New England, for example, and laws about cross-dressing. It used to be that God's law was enough to stop kind of evil, sinful people cross-dressing, and then it wasn't enough, so the state stepped in and started sending people off to jail. So there's a chapter about the colonial period, there's background about the evolution of queer culture in cities. There's a great kind of house of sin in Chicago during the American Civil War, notorious apparently. So there's just all these rich details, and I just thought, it's a niche subject, but if this is going to enrich other people's games by giving players a way to play queer investigators, regardless of whether they're queer or not, if it provides a framework and some guidelines and some history, and it provides keepers with exactly the same kind of information I'd want to know as a keeper about life in the Great Depression or Prohibition, these kind of things enrich storytelling and enrich the Call of Cthulhu game. So I just thought, it's an unexplored area. And as I say, it's kind of niche, so publishing it on the repository means that it's not the kind of thing I could pitch to Chaosium perhaps as a source book, because it might only sell 200 copies. But if it's published online, anybody anywhere in the world can download it, read it, and use it for their game.
Just a random fact on that one, just when you're looking at things of what you want to publish or why, you can go niche, which is just amazing and gorgeous and delicious, and go follow your passion. If you're curious about what content for Call of Cthulhu sells the most, probably unsurprising, is 1920s. So 1920s, 1930s is going to be your era that is going to see the most amount of just eager traffic. I'm not discouraging you from going anywhere else. I did Gaslight and Futuristic. We are in a Regency Cthulhu. We are where we are. But if you're just curious, like, I wonder what market is like most greedy for, it's 1920s and 1930s. That was just a random, hey, here's a fun little piece of information. Mob and Mark, I'm really excited to kind of hear your responses on here, especially because there's this whole weird stigma about like, well, I work for a publishing company, but you're also publishing on a community content platform. I would love to hear from you two on why.
It's quicker.
Yes, yes. Lean into that one, honey, because that's a real fact.
And because you can put something out there that's, it can just be a small thing you want to express a small idea. I mean, this is amazing. Doesn't have to be that. And it's fun to be your own means of production. And what's exceptional about that is that there are templates. I'm scared of art. You can get Creative Commons art, but there's art packs, and I'm scared of layout. But there are templates for Microsoft Word or for InDesign, and people are skilling up in InDesign and getting like new life publishing skills. So those barriers that are there for me, and so we have all that coming up for the Companion of Arthur kind of layout as well. And if you want to get into Pendragon, then let me know and I'll get your email and we'll start getting that stuff to you. So it's just obviously I adore publishing, and Mike Mason is a dream to work with, but there's only so many books coming out, and while you're waiting for those to emerge, you can crack on.
I was pretty much going to say similar to what Mark said. The reality is, so I'll speak from Chaosium's perspective. We can probably only publish, I'd love to publish 4 Call of Cthulhu books a year. We're not quite making that yet, but we're actually next year we're going to probably have that or maybe more. But the reality is, if you write something for us, it may not appear for a long time.
Yeah.
But if you do it in the Miskatonic repository, it can come out in your own time. There's one other criteria, and this will sound counterintuitive, about why it's great to publish on the Miskatonic repository, John Compendium and others. And that is, quality is not an issue. Okay? And
really
I'm
not.
saying that as a positive thing.
Yep, lean into it. Yep.
If you write something for us, we are going to, go through a whole editorial process and everything else, and it could take a very long time. We do not vet, review, edit, or anything for community content publications. So that is down to you. There are some broad things you're not allowed to do in community content, and if that gets flagged, we'd probably tell you. But we don't review stuff before it's published.
Right.
The great thing is, you could publish something and you could get feedback from the community. And I'm sure all of you have had that here. Kat talked about how she changed some of the maps and things. So one of the great things about publishing in PDF to start with is, you want to fix it later. After you've had some sales, maybe you then go and improve the art or whatever. So I think that's a really, really liberating process rather than waiting for a publisher to get round to publishing your work, which could take a very long time.
But it's also, I was just going to quickly add on to that, is like, I didn't mention in my introduction, I got invited to submit a scenario for the new Cthulhu Invictus book from Golden Goblin Press, and I would never have been invited to do that if I hadn't published a couple of things on the Miskatonic repository, because it said, hey, I've done these things, I can show these to you that I'm capable of writing a scenario. And
correct.
Lovely Bridgett connected me in with that opportunity as well. But it's not possible to get those kind of opportunities if you have nothing to show in the first place.
Yes.
So having something out there, even if it's imperfect, and none of our scenarios are perfect, is still way better than having nothing.
Yeah,
Well
I'll just quickly reiterate to that. So there's two things that are really important there. One is, if you've published something on the Miskatonic repository, you've shown us that you can write something and publish it.
And finish it. You can
And
actually
finish
get
it.
it across the finish line.
Lots of people have lots of great ideas, but
Yep.
you've shown that you can get something over the line, which is a really important thing.
Yep.
And in some respects, that's even almost more important than whether it is, mind-blowingly amazing.
That is true.
Well, sorry, Michael.
Yeah, go ahead,
I
please.
was going to
Dave.
add to this too, because I do publishing in the academic history space and so on. While, as Michael says, there isn't like peer review or anything of what you're doing, I have found the community content creators to be incredibly helpful.
Yeah, they are.
When I've sent things off to Nick Brook particularly, and he'll go through and he'll read it carefully and he'll give me feedback, and I'll play tennis with him back and forth a few times before it comes out. So you have that option available. Whereas quite often with commercial publishers, they'll run it through a computer and send it straight out, and they haven't even looked at it. So I've quite often had sent a thing through a commercial piece, and if I hadn't, essentially I'm vetting the PDF that they've sent me for the author review myself, and I'm doing the editing myself anyway.
Yeah.
And that's working with even some big name, like Carolina Academic Press and so on. They'll often just do that. So, because in a sense they no longer hire copy editors the way they used to back in the old days. In fact, the only one book I've published where I haven't opened it and gone, oh God, didn't miss something, was one where a close family friend who used to work for Penguin as a copy editor actually went through it and actually
And combed
combed it. So, to be honest, you probably get more support working through the community content support people with this than you do through a commercial publisher.
No, sorry, go on.
Just going to quickly add also the emphasis on community.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because you won't just get feedback from the community content coordinators at Chaosium, but other writers who like your work will write you. Like I'm currently editing or helping sub-edit a future release for the Miskatonic repository, which is a 1920s guide to Ireland. So it's an update of Mysteries of Ireland, which was published as a monograph kind of years ago. And the writer mentioned that he was working on it. I mentioned to him, oh, look, I've just kind of like written the Hibernia chapter for Britannia, so I'm quite interested in Ireland and Irish history. If you need any help or whatever. So we ended up emailing back and forth, and I kept saying things like, oh, I just found this great reference to the Committee Against Immoral Literature that was established in 1926 after the Free State achieved some independence from Britain. Committee for kind of, it sounds like a front for people going around burning mythos tomes. Is that going to be useful for you at all? And so just little things like that, and kind of, and I know that kind of something, the next thing I write, he will happily, he's already offered to kind of to read my new Invicta scenario and give feedback on that. So yeah, that notion of the reciprocal nature and the community support from other members of community publishing is important.
Family.
I'm not quite sure how to phrase the question. I apologise. I mean, it's all well and good, Richard, for yourself or Dave to get attention from someone like Nick, who I imagine has a lot of people approaching him all the time, asking for assistance. For those of us who are unpublished, I've found it a little harder to get any assistance through the community.
So let me
which
jump
I guess
in.
is just the nature of being an unknown.
Nope, I would disagree, at least from my perspective, but that doesn't invalidate yours. So I'm going to throw options at you, and we'll see what spaghetti sticks at the wall, which is a great segue here because I wanted to talk about community support and the tools and aids that you guys have. Is spaghetti against the wall not a phrase down here?
I'm thinking of the Eminem now. So yeah.
So the one thing I wanted to segue in, which is a great question from you, is like what type of support is in place? Because Mark mentioned that there are templates already in place for people who don't want to bother with how to do layout. Bridgett can't do layout at all, so I outsource that one. Kat has a whole video series on how to like lay out your Miskatonic repository scenario in InDesign on YouTube, which is great. And then in addition to that, she also mentioned that Mob, I would love for you to jump in and talk about, is a storytelling collective, about literally it's a school, it's a course, it's a program that, is self-start, but you can, log in with maybe a cool idea and then 30 days later have a whole complete scenario ready to go and pushed out the door. It's an amazing resource. I'll let Mob talk about it more. But community support for unknown. So let me be super transparent. I am not reading any of your stuff. Bridgett doesn't have the bandwidth, and I write for too many companies from the litigious nature of the United States. I can't read your stuff because if I accidentally metabolize something you gave me and write it for Free League or write it for anybody else, then suddenly I'm in a hit. So I don't do peer reviews. If you send me your stuff, I'm going to send it right back to you and say, thanks, have a blessed day. That's not something I can offer you. However, there are other tools embedded into the community that Chaosium has been very intentional about providing it. So one of them is called the CHC. It's a directory that I run called the Helping Creators Directory, where literally you can log into this PDF and it says, hi, I need general support. I need somebody to keeper play test my content, where somebody else takes your content, actually runs it and gives you feedback. Or, hey, I need player feedback. I need an editor. I need a proofreader. I need art. I need cartography. I need translation into French. Does anybody speak French? Great. There's a few people here. So that's a resource you can use. If you don't have that resource or you need to find it, just holler at me at the end of the panel here. I'll give you my card and I can send it to you. The other thing, when it comes to the community, the hubs that have popped up around the Chaosium Community Content Program are absolutely obnoxious. So I own a company called Symphony Entertainment, and all I do is dog walk Miskatonic Repository every time I can. I stream it, I podcast it, I review it, I support it, I celebrate it, I hype it up. That's just my little hub. There's the Miskatonic Playhouse, if you guys aren't familiar with them, where all these people do is take your content that you submit and then they run it professionally. It's a really dope feeling for you to write some content and have another company actually do a professional production of it, which is really amazing. There's the Miskatonic Repository Convention, where once a year all the creators come together for a big online convention that's worldwide, and you can play test your stuff, you can run your stuff, they host panels, we bring in Chaosium as guests, and that's an absolutely amazing community as well. So there are hubs that can support you even if you're completely unknown, because we all started somewhere. None of us started out the gate like, ha, we are the road dogs for community content. No, we started off with like, can I use the Hounds of Tenderlos? No, I can't. What about the King in Yellow? Is that a thing? Oh God, can I use the yellow sign? Can somebody? So there are tools, there are hubs, and there are locations that 100% will bring you in and insulate you, especially if you're bold enough to do this. I'm new and I don't know what's going on. I wish you the best of luck, because by the time you get swarmed by this community, you're going to be like, that was the wrong decision. I probably should have just snuck in and lurked for a little bit.
I was literally like on the Miskatonic repository creator circles on Facebook.
On Facebook, yeah.
Going like, can I write a gaslight scenario? Like, what is the difference between that and 7th edition? I don't understand. Please help. And lovely Nick Brooke, who's probably answered this question like 5 million times, it's just like, it's fine. Just write it for 7th edition. I'm like, okay. Okay.
Can I just add one thing? In that Helping Creators Directory, which is an awesome resource, it also has, if someone volunteers, and you can also volunteer if you've got particular skills and talents that you
holler
have,
at me. I will add you.
And people will say things like, hey, you want an editor? I want to be credited. Or they might say, hey, maybe we split the proceeds, I get 25, you get 75. So people are upfront about what their expectation is. Someone might say, hey, I'll draw art for you, I do $30 a pick or whatever. So I think that's a really important thing to know, that it's not amorphous. People are pretty direct about what they're prepared to offer. I'll just quickly mention about the Storytelling Collective.
Talk about that, yeah.
So the Storytelling Collective has this program where the idea is it's your Write Your First Adventure workshop.
Yeah.
It is self-paced, but they sort of recommend a cadence for you to get it done. If you don't get it done in that time because shit happens, well, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
We have one for RuneQuest, we have one for Call of Cthulhu. And when those programs are finished, as Kat said, we've actually published them in bundles.
Yes. And
people buy them. And for RuneQuest, we've actually even published a print version. So this has about 6 or 7 of those RuneQuest adventures inside it. So we're really proud. The other final thing I just want to say is the Ennies, which is a tabletop RPG awards, after many years of trying to tell them what community content is, because they were calling it organised play. They weren't really clear. This year, finally, they have a specific award for community content.
Which is huge, guys.
So we've had like about 4 or 5 things win any awards in the past, but now there's actually a dedicated award for it, and it is really nice to get recognition in that way. So that's another good thing.
The thing about community support as well, I could suggest, and this is something I pick up working in the academic space, works really well here. If someone's published in a topic or published an adventure that's similar to what you do, chances are they're passionate about it. And if you contact them or send them a message on Drive-Thru-RPG, you're very likely to have them go, oh, really, you're doing such and such, great. And they'll have a chat and you'll have a conversation and you'll build a relationship, and that can help you produce new content. And, we publish stuff because we're into it and we get off on talking about, what our particular subject areas are. And, you can build networks. And if you're building networks, you can be like, look, I'll play test and review yours. You can play test and review mine. The live play people as Miskatonic Repository are really amazing. But I'll give you like a little example. Like something I've published academically a lot on is the fad called Playing the Ghost. So people go out in ghost costumes and scare people. I was wanting to run a live play this year. I was worried about how much time I had. And I went, Cat here published one set in the UK, which actually kicked off the fad back around 1803 in London. And I went, could I please borrow your adventure, tweak it to Ballarat, and then run that as a live play? And Kat was like, sure. And I'm like, great, we did it. And she gets a live play adventure. We get a adventure out for the Heritage Festival.
So
and,
cool.
Everyone's happy.
I seriously, one of the best things I think about the whole process is just trying to say the and yes. Like, it's just like, I try not to say no as much as possible because I'm like, the more the merrier. If you want to change something, if you want to make it your own, if you want to run it, like, I'm pretty 99% sure I'm going to say yes because it's just exciting for me. Like, it's cool. It's cool.
Yeah. And of course, we love live play because people see the live play and they think, oh, I'm going to go buy Hammersmith Warning or I'll buy William Bailey's Haunted Mansion because they see it played and they see it and they have fun with it and think, yeah, I can run that. In fact, often, I'll see an adventure and I'm not sure how I'm going to run it, and then I watch the live play and I'm like, oh, right, that's gives me a tip,
Hey, Mark, can you tell everyone what your first publication in the Miskatonic Repository is? Because that's an interesting story.
Yeah, that was more a case of not something written for the Miskatonic, but it had no other home because Lynn rejected it and Keith rejected it and Mike probably would have rejected it. But there was a White Dwarf scenario competition in 1986 and they just gave you a map and said, write a scenario. So I did. And I sent it off, but I kept the typescript and we played it. It was really fun. And I got runner-up, which was neat. I was beaten by a D&D adventure, of course. But it was kicking around and kicking around and kicking around. And when this came along, I thought, that unpublishable thing could now be published. But I published it historically. Like, it's as I wrote it. I'm not revising it because there are some dodgy shit in there. But there's also some rad scenes, and so I did a little kind of essay about it. So it's more kind of a historical thing. And it's called The Saltwater Inheritance. So that was a way of using it for a different venue, because just looking at the breadth of publications here is extraordinary. Anything can stick if it's something fresh. But it seems like things that people can really play, like the Investigator's Handbook, Heinrich's Guide, those kind of things that really hit the table, they're super popular as well, right?
Yeah, they hit it hard. Yeah.
I just want to finish the thought with Mark. You may have written something 25 years ago.
It's still good. It's still good.
You may be sitting in your folder. You may have had that burning in your brain saying, I'd just love to get that out there. So I'm just going to give you a case in point. I have a scenario in this book. It's called Fortunate Son, which is a riff on the Creedence Clearwater Revival song title. It had formerly, I think, been called either Last Tango in Pavis or Mad Prax Beyond Sundo. But anyway, whatever. I have bad puns for titles. I wrote this in 1987.
Yeah.
And okay, I thought it was pretty good. It's come back. So if you've got something sitting in your drawer that you thought, hey, we had loads of fun with that back in the day, this is the ideal venue for it.
Agreed.
It really is.
And the contextualizing kind of intro that Mark wrote, for example, is a really nice way to take what is otherwise an antique or a kind of it's a little piece of history, but it makes it kind of contemporary again, and it also, I think, as a reader, kind of reading ephemera from writers I like, reading their kind of embarrassing early works that they kind of go, oh, I wish that had never been published. Or in the case of some writers, they die and then their estate go, quick, go through the archives. What can we make money from? It's really fascinating to see how people progress as a writer as well. So that's a kind of fascinating aspect to what was it originally called Shadows Over Salt Marsh?
Shadows Over Salt Marsh, I think it was.
Yeah,
Just the exact
I've got a copy of it from kind of from back in that, because Mark and I have known each other since 1984. Kind of, oh my God, it is. So kind of like when I heard it was coming kind of back into life, I was kind of delighted because I knew that it had never been published. So
this is really significant for related points, and that's friendship, because we wrote to each other in the olden times with stamps. But it's community, and you're joining like a tribe, which is really nice. And what I'd love to see more of right here next year, see it then, is more of these scenarios being run out there. Because you definitely see the hit ones like hitting, we've got some of them kind of hitting the tables. Someone else is running cat scenario, like when people pick it up, because I think we all have free access to the published stuff, but this is kind of, wow, I can hit the table with something really fresh and new and support each other. So, yeah.
Bridgett, can I just put out something that I'd love to see also for next year?
Yeah, no, please, by all means. I'm going to finish you up and then we'll take questions for the last 15 minutes.
Sure. I'd love to see more scenarios set in Australia. Kind of, David's written a great one. There's a couple set in Melbourne. There's not that many. There's a great Australian source book that I think is rich in ideas, and I would love to see kind of more 1920s kind of Melbourne scenarios, more Gaslight scenarios set in Sydney, wherever it may be. I think it's a really rich and fertile ground, and it would then encourage more people to go and buy the Australian source book from Chaosium, which can only be good for them. But also, you've got all this rich history in your own backyard, and all these evocative ideas you can use. And the next panel will be talking about history as inspiration for gaming. He says segueing, but write Australian set scenarios. That's what I want to see and play in next year.
Nice. Couple little FYIs I'm just going to throw out, and then I need you guys to throw questions this direction. Two things. As far as like where to set your scenario, if you go to the Miskatonic Playhouse's website, this is the podcasters that do all MR stuff. I think it's just miskatonicplayhouse.com. They have a map where you can literally just open it up and you can see, a dope map. You can just see where the Miskatonic repository scenarios are taking place. So you can look and go like, wow, there's like 200 scenarios all in Boston. There's only 3 in all of Australia. So it's really cool.
For RuneQuest, there's the same map for set in the world of Glorantha, where all the scenarios.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a riff on the map from the Asterisk books. You know?
So that's a cool resource if you're just looking for like an inspired location that hasn't really been delved into. That's a really good thing. The other thing I wanted to mention before I throw the table to you guys, Mob had mentioned if you have something in your drawer, your flash drive from X amount of years ago, you can revitalize and resurrect that. The other thing I also wanted to mention, if you're starting new, you have some creators like Heinrich or like these folk who do like 9,000 page books, or like Richard is going to be doing. Like you got the big boys. One of my favorite contents on the Miskatonic repository are pamphlet adventures. Because I'm not reading 400 pages. I'm sorry, I'm just not. Bridgett ain't gonna do it. That might be your vibe.
2 pages, one back and front.
Yep, that might be your vibe. That's not Bridgett's vibe, and that's okay. As you continue to publish and you get out there, you will find your niche, you will find your people. But give me a 2-page scenario for 99 cents where I can go plot, investigators, maybe a climax, maybe a conclusion, and a scene. Bam, and I'm good to go for 4 hours. There are multiple creators that all they do is put up 4-page, which is literally a 2-page front and back, pamphlet scenarios. Those are completely viable. And if you're just like, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing, that's a great place to start, to be like, here's some inspiration tables, here's a loose plot, and maybe here's an investigator. Y'all, thanks, be blessed, have a great day. That's an option, and that will speak to people like me. So, you can do 900 pages. You can also do 2, and both of those are completely okay. Just get published. To Kat's point, just get out of your own way and go get published. And especially if you're looking for publish, or if you're looking to write or create for other companies, the very first thing they're going to ask you is, show me something you've finished. Your cool idea isn't finished until it's finished. And a platform like this, where you're not even being charged to use the license, is an amazing way to say, I'm finished. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't need to be beyond reproach, but it does need to be finished. That's us, guys. What questions do you have coming this way?
Thank you for the panel. That was awesome. So you mentioned you wanted to see more people run their scenarios here next year, perhaps, the Miskatonic published scenarios. I published one through the RPG Writers Workshop, which I highly recommend if you haven't done it. It's amazing. The 1 month deadline is, that's a crit. Anyway, I've published a scenario. I'd love to run it, if possible. So how would I go about doing that? It's an interesting part.
So for this convention, we put out a call for volunteers. I can't remember how long ago it was. And you can actually say, hey, I want to run my scenario at your convention. And it's probably about as far as it goes. And we say, sure. And for that, you actually get a free badge, you get a t-shirt, and knock yourself out.
And you haven't already, make sure you submit that to the Miskatonic Playhouse to see if they want to podcast it. That's free advertisement.
I wasn't aware.
Oh, listen, yep.
But also more than that, come and join us on the Discord, because
Yes.
they're awesome people. I'm actually going to see some of them in the UK this year, and I'm like, this is from a Discord. This is cool. Sorry,
Yep.
Mark.
Is that part of the Chaosium Discord, or is that a separate one?
That is separate. Email me, and I can get you a blanket list of all the Discords where all the Miskatonic repository people hang out.
I'd just like to know what your adventure's called.
It's called Split.
Split. Nice.
That's sinister already.
That is sinister already.
Yeah, I'm scared.
Go ahead, baby.
How well do PDF adventures sell on drive-through which are free, as opposed to ones which have a nominal price or a realistic price?
I would answer you, but I know Mob is just dying to answer that question. I want to respond to you, but Mob wants
So
it.
the typical price that people will pay for a pay what you want product on Drive-Thru RPG is zero. Put a value on your work, even if it is 99 cents. Put a value on your work. That is my very, very strong message. Having said that, if you want to make your work free, knock yourself out. We are not stopping you. You want to make it pay what you want, knock yourself out. Just be aware that if you make it pay what you want, even if you put a recommended price, you could say pay what you want, $3 recommended price. 99.999997% of people are going to pay zero for it. Okay? Go with that knowledge into it, and away you go.
But how many of them will pay zero as opposed to something that's 99 cents? Would everyone download it for free and have a copy?
Yeah. So lots of people would. So, okay, some people say, hey, I want people to see my work. I'm going to release this one for nothing, and then the next one I'm going to charge money for. That's a valid marketing approach. So that's something to think about. I just want to stress, if you think you're going to make your fortune by having a pay what you want product, you ain't. Okay, that's all I'm saying. The other really important thing is the metal rankings on Drive-Thru RPG. You have like a copper product if it's sold 50, silver is 100, Electrum is 250. If it is priced less than 20 US cents, it doesn't count for metal rankings.
Correct.
And you need to have sold 250 PDFs, sold them, before we would move to have it as a POD product.
Yep.
Yeah. I want to add to that too, because I played your scenario this afternoon. You should definitely charge for that. It was heaps of fun, and it does, your work deserves reward. Like, it costs you time and money to put these things together, and it is actually very satisfying to see it go up and go, oh, like, you know, a couple of people bought it. I'm going to be really transparent. I've sold over 650 copies of the Hammersmith Haunting, and that's gone up, obviously, like, since this weekend even, right? Thought I was going to sell a copy to my mum, but I'm still explaining it to my parents what this thing actually is.
What is it role playing game?
Yeah. Oh, can we play it? Can we play it? I'm like, I don't know. But like, when you're thinking about pricing, I think that was one thing I was super confused about when I started. I was like, I don't know, I'll just charge like $10. I think 20 cents a page is a pretty good price estimator. So that's kind of what I've been working off these days. Yeah.
Good question.
Sell it. Ask people for money. They will come.
People value more what they pay for.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
I'm not sure how common this problem is, but I often think of like situations or circumstances which would be really great to set an adventure or scenario in, that then struggle to come up with the Lovecraftian Cthulhu element. Like, what's the challenge? What's the knowledge reason to be there? How do I make this a Miskatonic repository scenario?
Doesn't need to have mythos. Like, my second scenario is mythos adjacent. And also I just make up my own mythos, so... Yeah.
Horror on the Orient Express is not a mythos publication, it's just mad horror. Go mad horror and then wedge in the Alathotep.
Spoilers.
Like right at the end!
And also, just to add into that as well, I would love to see more investigative scenarios that aren't about mythos or the supernatural sometimes, just as a break for your players. For example, they might think there's going to be a mythos element. Surprise, there's not. It's kind of smugglers or gangsters or whatever. So using some of the history of the 1920s to create scenarios that kind of are a change of, like a palate cleanser, would be a lovely thing to see as well.
It'd be nice to play with people's expectations too. There's one I'm contemplating publishing, which is, people do mythos, they'll expect mythos, but the actual culprit's going to be an escaped big cat in the Australian bush. And I wrote a book about Australia's folklore of big cats, and I thought that might be a nice segue, and everyone will be looking for supernatural stuff, and it's actually big cat escape from the circus. So, I've got it sitting there.
What about, try and say this without ignoring but what about accessory type publications? How do they go? Are they fairly popular on the repository?
So, Nick Brock, who is a forensic accountant by day, has, if you go onto the Miskatonic Repository Creators Circle and you look at the stats that he provides, he can give you mind-numbingly detailed information about what
Facts.
sells, what doesn't, how much is a good price to charge per page, and everything else. So there's a lot of data that you can use. Did you have a question there?
I did, but
Go ahead. I've finished. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I feel like the big barrier for me in creating specifically for Call of Cthulhu is the importance of the history, which is part of the appeal, but research is a real pain. And do you guys as authors have any recommendations or resources that you would recommend to kind of jumpstart getting the information you need so that you're being true to the source?
We're going to take 1 hour to answer that in the next panel.
But also, I have a really quick answer. One of the things I found really useful are illustrated children's books about history. Because you get this kind of like beautiful summary of the information that you probably actually want to need without having to read kind of like 400 word, like I'm currently reading a 400 page.
Ones you buy for about $10 in the newsagent.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the Viking history of the Vikings.
Exactly, that kind of stuff. It's great. It just gives you that little potted, condensed kind of the window dressing, and then kind of you focus on the scenario. Like I'm currently reading a 400-page book about Irish rainforests, just so I can get some information accurate. Yeah. So
As an author, like it's like that's the biggest hurdle for me, because you don't want to be disrespectful to any source that you're representing. So
You can always write a modern scenario too, and you'll be like, great, internet's a thing, phones, whatever, like.
Or just put in your introduction, some historical details have been fictionalized in order to facilitate play.
If you say this is a true story, it'll cost you $170 million. So don't do that.
There's a couple of things, though, I think critical. Like, I'm not sure which area of history you're talking about. But let's say you're looking at Australian history. Get onto Trove, which is a digital newspaper archive, and that can give you the language and the type of discussion and so on. Get onto Public Records Office Victoria. Go and have a look at the trial briefs, and that'll give you things like forensic skills, procedure, the language people use. And you can both digitally search those, which is fantastic. If you're working with Indigenous people, you must work with the community and find with, because that sort of misrepresentation is very old, very tired, and can be really offensive. But, for me, go to the source material, get a sense of the speech, get a sense of the reportage, the kind of things people focus on, what language do they use. Like, for me, for my adventures, I actually just find newspaper articles that say what I want to say, and then I rip them and use them in the story. Same thing with building plans and architectural drawings. I'll just take them and tweak them. But you can actually sometimes say, grab a newspaper, tweak it to be about what you want it to be, but you've kept the sort of language and feel intact. And then if you go onto Trove, you can actually click a button saying cite this and cut and paste the citation and whack it in.
Interesting.
Which means you've got it sourced right there and then. And
I just need to give a quick answer for RuneQuest, and then we'll get Alan's question. For RuneQuest, there is a philosophy called Your Glorantha is the setting world for RuneQuest. Greg Stafford, creator of Glorantha and RuneQuest, way back then, had the founding principle of Your Glorantha. He said may vary, and it became Your Glorantha will vary. So knock yourself out. Canon is not important. I had somebody ask me, it wasn't for this book, it was another one. They said, what is the source you're quoting for whatever crap I was writing? And my answer, I love this. It's actually on the header of my Twitter page. I quoted it. I basically said, I got it from the same wellspring of inspiration as Greg Stafford. I made it up. And that's the answer. And Alan, you had a question.
I was just going to say that year 7 and 8 history books are in fact your friend. If Glorantha isn't built on, those, ancient history books, which are all year 7, your medieval stuff, or Pendragon is all year 8, they go through. And you were saying about Aboriginal people, every time I've had to deal with an Aboriginal setting, or because I do dot painting and things like that, I have found the Aboriginal elders to be fabulous and easy to work with. Absolutely. Especially if you're not a government body.
really friendly, really collaborative.
And
made some really great friends.
I did dance and dot painting and a whole range of things in my classes, and they loved them all because. I went to the source first and asked just simple questions. Can we do dancing? Yes. How do, what are these things? How do they go? I mean, I don't think you necessarily want to write a thing on dancing, but dot paintings and stuff like that, they've always been fabulous.
Yeah. I just want to slide in with one more resource for you. I know, baby, I'm coming right at you. The Helping Creators Directory has a research column where you can literally reach out to them and be like, hey, will you research this? Then there's like, oh yeah, that's my favorite thing to do is research. Yeah. What are we doing? There's a couple people in there that's like, all I want to do is talk to people about 1920s fashion. Yeah. Great. That's so you can outsource your research. The other thing is that document also has a sensitivity column review, which you can get massive mileage out of there, because if you're just like, I think it's okay. You want to trade editing for sensitivity review? Okay, great. Will you check this out and let me know how it goes? So there are some options where you have tools there where you can leverage the community around you. Sorry, I interrupted somebody who threw their hand up for a question, which is probably going to be our last one.
Not meant as any kind of criticism at all, because all of this has been wonderful and it's wonderful. How does Chaosium do out of the Miskatonic repository and the community programs? Like, is it a nice earner for you guys?
All right,
Just
so this is-
genuinely curious.
Yeah. Okay, so this is how it works, and this is for all the community content programs that drive through RPG. So the creator, that's you guys, you get 50% of all the sales. So if a book is $10, you get $5. Drive through RPG gets $3 or 30%, and we get 20%. And that is a recognition of we are letting you use our IP and all the other resources we give you, and I think that's a pretty fair sort of split. For when a book is in print, there is a cost regardless that has to be paid at the start, and then the split happens after that, because obviously there's physical components to it. So in terms of how much money we make out of community content, I'm not going to go into actual figures, but we're very happy. It's been a successful program. We use some of the money we make from that so that we employ our community ambassadors.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We are in the business of selling books, and we feel that if these programs create these communities, and the people that are creating and working in them and buying the things will also buy our books too. So we think it's a win-win situation. And Drive-Through seems to love us too, but of course they should. They get 30%, so they're doing really well.
Just on that pricing thing, the print on the demand and the cost of the book.
Yep.
The drive-through help you work out that. So like if I'm selling a scenario or whatever for say.
Yeah, it's all worked out. It's all worked
work
out.
out
Okay, so let's say if it's a 20-page book, Drive-Through RPG will say, well, the material cost for that is, I don't know, $2.78.
$2, yeah.
And they will also, if you're, as a creator, you're not getting all the money, like you're sharing it, they will also do that automatically.
No, that's right. Yeah, so you set up a account on Drive-Through RPG, and so you will actually get the royalties just paid directly in. And I'll just say finally, because we've got to end this one and move to the next one.
Yep.
If we sell your stuff at a convention like this,
Like out there, right now.
out there, yeah. You actually do, as the creator, you get the normal royalty for it as well. Okay, so everyone wins as far as I'm concerned.
Guys, we are at time. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for the engagement. If you need to holler at us, ambush us now unless there's another panel happening here.
There is.
So we need to move.
No. So let's say what that panel is, because it is actually.
It's a nice segue from.
Yeah, it's a panel specifically about using history to help create your material and the best ways to go about that. David, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that will flow on very nicely.
That's the elevator pitch.